about 3 times a year. COVID's kind of getting us to go. This is I think our 3rd or 4th one this year, and we tend to get a lot more people because it's broader, which is nice. So I think maybe next year we'll be doing a combination of both, face-to-face, because there's some beauty about being together in a face-to-face in a small environment. But also the great thing on these Saturdays, we can get more people come in too. So we'll probably do both next year. But if you're a teacher, just know we've got a teacher training coming up later this month in Wilson, and we give scholarships, partial scholarships to that. We might be on the other side of the scholarship cycle, but you can check the website on that. We do a lot of teacher training in the summer as well. We'll have Orton Gillingham, possibly another Wilson training this summer. All instructor literacy, which works for not just dyslexic kids, but for all children. So we're all about getting good training out there, and scholarships for teachers to attend, as well as we do grants for schools. So if your school's needing to get some programs in, we help fund that up to $7,500 a year for up to 2 years, and the grant cycle will be starting this spring. And that's a really exciting way to get programs into schools, because sometimes principals will say, we just don't have the funds for that. Well, you can get the funds for that, and we're all about that. So we have some really good things available for you, resources for you guys about that. Well, let me introduce Dawn. Dawn Rea. Dawn, you can let people see who Dawn is. Dawn leads our Long Beach parent group, as I mentioned. She's a school psychologist, which brings a great perspective. And she works, actually, she's a psychologist for kids, school psychologist for all grade levels, which is interesting, not just focused on one. She's a parent. She has 2 boys, 13 and 16, who were both diagnosed with dyslexia pretty early on and got a lot of early intervention, which is amazing, makes all the difference. She's passionate about promoting dyslexia awareness and intervention. So that's really something that she believes strongly in, because she's seen the difference in her own kids. So we're happy to have Dawn present today on the topic of keeping kids motivated. So if you want to make sure you're on mute, and if you want to be visible, that's great. If not, you can just put, non-visible. And if you have a question for Dawn or something, we're going to have Christy, our office manager, is monitoring the chat. So you could pop something in the chat, and then Christy will communicate that to Dawn when Dawn opens it up for questions. Does that sound good? Great. Well, welcome to our workshop, Dawn. Welcome. Thank you for speaking today.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So welcome. Like Barb said, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I went into school psychology. I went back to school after I had my teaching credential, but I went back to grad school because my first kid was identified with dyslexia very early in kindergarten and first grade. And that just kind of spurred in me an interest in this field. I didn't even realize there were school psychologists, and so then I can see it from a perspective of as a parent, as a teacher, and now from the school psychologist perspective. And so that's why I'm really interested in the dyslexia field. So this specific presentation is about keeping kids motivated during online learning. It's based a lot of the work on Peg Dawson, who is the author of Smart But Scattered Kids, and there's a school psychologist named Dr. Liz Enghoff, and I'll give you their websites at the end. So you will be receiving a copy of the presentation if you'd like it, so you don't need to write anything down if you don't want to. Okay, the objectives of this presentation are just quickly, why are our children not getting things done while learning at home? How do we figure out what's getting in their way? And what skills can we teach our children to make these things happen more effectively and efficiently? So those are the things hopefully we will get answered by the end of this time period. If not, then we can brainstorm on other ways. So, oops, wrong way. So I just want to first start with this quote. Students with dyslexia would rather be seen as unwilling rather than unable. So just to keep that in mind. And this doesn't have, this presentation doesn't just have to do with kids that have dyslexia, it's all kids, but just that, you know, sometimes kids would rather be seen as they don't want to do it rather than they can't do it, but just that's something to keep in mind. So one thing to consider is behavior is a way to communicate without words. Obviously, we can use words, you know, verbally to express what we want, but a lot of times our children are trying to tell us something with their behavior. So if any of you are in the field of education, then you know that there's, you know, behaviorists, and they think about the way kids act in the classroom different than a psychologist would think of the way kids act in the classroom. And they only go by what they can see, right? They don't think about the mental process that is going on in a kid's head, like what they may be feeling or anything. They only do what they can see. So to understand what that is, they look at the ABCs of behavior. So you have the antecedent, or what led up to this, the behavior, what did the child actually do, and the consequence, what did you do? Or as in, what did the adult do? So if you look at this chart, you see that, you know, the A is made up of really the calm, trigger, agitation, acceleration, all the way up to this point. So here you have the antecedent, what led up to B, which is this peak. This is what actually happened. This is the behavior, okay? And then what you did about it is kind of the C, kind of the consequence. What did you do in reaction to it? So kind of understanding that language is important. To what are our kids trying to tell us when they can't tell us in words? You know, they're trying to tell us something in what they're doing, and a lot of how we react to it influences how they're going to behave in the future as well as right now. So we have to try to understand what they're telling us both by their behavior and their words. So most of the time, the functions of behavior, you know, what they're trying to communicate tell us something, and they're usually these four things. Not always, but they usually fall into these four categories. So you have sensory, escape, attention, and tangibles. So these answer the kind of the what the kid does and where and when the kid does it. So sensory means what it does for me. Like, it provides some sort of preferred sensory experience. The behavior feels good to do something. And when does it happen? It can happen anytime. When the person's alone, maybe when they're anxious. A lot of times, you know, not necessarily, but autistic kids have a sensory need, like they need to touch things or they need not to touch things. So that can provide a sensory stimulation. Escape is more like the removal of something. So say a kid doesn't want to do homework, they act out so that they don't have to do the homework, or they're told to do a chore, they act out so they don't have to do the chore because, you know, the parent reacts and says, okay, never mind, I'll do it myself. Now, I'm very guilty of that myself. So it's just a natural reaction. They behave so that they can get out of something. So when does it happen? When the task is too hard, too easy, too boring, too scary, situations like that. Another a function of the behavior is attention, to provides access to people or interaction. So they do it when they want to get somebody's attention, either a parent's attention, a teacher's attention, other kids in the classroom's attention. So anytime they want social interaction. And then tangibles provide preferred items or activities. So anytime, like, you know, you're hungry, you want something, or you want, you know, a treat that somebody can provide, or even if you want to do something, like you can earn computer time, something like that. It's an activity that you can earn. So it's something that actually, you know, is tangible, strongly. So the aspects of behavior basically answer these questions. So the why is it communicates a need. So we talked about that. That was the sensory, escape, attention, or tangible. The where and the when and the how is basically, you know, how already know what your kids are doing, but we're going to break it down a little, like they kind of break down into 5 different categories. So we're going to talk about that. And also then what do we do about it, right? Because that's what we're here for, because we want to know, okay, I already know my kid is doing this or not doing this, and then what do I do about it? So first of all, I want to explain the why and how motivation impacts it, because it does have a big impact on it. And we've all heard of that there's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And There's nothing wrong with extrinsic motivation, okay? So first we'll talk about intrinsic, because everybody says, I want to build intrinsic motivation in my kid because, oh, that's so important. And it is, it is. It comes from within a person. And some examples are purpose, having a sense of fun or love. These are reasons why you would do stuff. You want to feel a sense of belonging, curiosity, learning, or meaning. You know, just you feel the need to be a better person, right? And it's built by giving student choices and autonomy. So that's a lot of times when people will recommend, okay, you give a student a limited choice of you're okay with both choices. If you say, if you want a kid to put their shoes on, do you want the red shoes or the blue shoes to put on? But you're okay with either choice. You don't care if you wear the red shoes or the blue shoes, but you just want them to put their shoes on. But they feel like they're getting a choice in the matter. You're kind of building that intrinsic motivation. They feel like they have a choice. They feel like they're a little bit empowered, but they're still doing what you want them to do. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside a person, so they're motivated in a different way. If they do something, they get money, praise, grades, but it can be used to establish basic skill development and reinforce good habits. So there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we all are motivated by extrinsic factors, right? Like you don't go to work and you get nothing, right? You get your paycheck. You wouldn't do it for free. Maybe some of you would, but most of us would. We want to get paid, right? I mean, we have to get paid. So we're all motivated by something extrinsic. And a lot of times, you know, we give a lot at the beginning and then we scale it back and we scale it back until we no longer need that. So we offer the extrinsic at the beginning and then we are hoping to build the good habit. So then it becomes intrinsically motivated. Oops, I keep doing that, sorry. Okay, so we're going to get at the root at what can I do about it? So how do we find out what our children are really telling us when they don't do schoolwork, chores, etc.? So this can apply to whether you're a parent and your kid isn't doing their schoolwork, or you're a teacher. It's a little bit more geared towards you're a parent or a grandparent, but it can also apply to a teacher, or why they're not doing chores at home. So essentially you got to ask them. I mean, obviously they're not doing something for a reason, right? So you hope they have the verbal skills to be able to tell you. And so you ask them, I've noticed you've been having difficulty getting blank done. What's up? Like you've been having trouble getting your schoolwork done. You've been having trouble getting your chores done. You've been having trouble, whatever, getting something done. What's up? Okay. And so, and they'll answer in 5 different likely responses. These are your 5 different likely responses. Likely. And they fall into these categories. There's either too much, it's too hard, it's too boring, they're too distracted, or it's too pointless. Okay? So we're going to break those down and see maybe more specific responses. So if it's too much, so typical examples of what your kid may say are, there are too many things I have to do. Okay, like they're just overwhelmed, or this is going to take way too long, or this hurts my brain, or you know, some in that vein of it's just I'm overwhelmed. You know, I can't do it. They're asking too much of me. Okay, so what do you do with that, right? So here are some choices that you can offer as solutions, and take what you want, throw out what you don't want. You know, you might have tried some of these and you're like, well, I tried that didn't work. Well, you can try another one, or you think this is not going to work for my family, then that's fine too. But some maybe you haven't heard of before. So make a plan. Even if you deviate from the plan, just the act of making the plan sometimes helps your brain stay organized. Make a list using small steps, using Post-its or a whiteboard so it's easy to remove once it's complete. So, you know, you get rid of it once it's done, so you feel like, okay, the list is getting smaller, you get a sense of accomplishment. You estimate the time for each step so you don't feel so overwhelmed. So, okay, because I know a lot of times my son will think, oh, it's going to take me an hour to do this assignment. And then if we actually time it and we realize, oh, wait, that only took 10 minutes. It gives a more realistic idea of how long this is actually going to take for the next time he does an assignment like that. Work in small time chunks, so 10 to 20 minutes, or use the Pomodoro method, which I will show you in the next slide what that specifically means. Use small rewards after completing each piece. So that, here we come to the extrinsic rewards. within reason. It's not like you're gonna have your kid do one math problem and you're gonna give him an hour's worth of TV time. I mean, that's totally not proportional. But it's like, say you do, you finish 20 minutes and then you get to watch a clip of YouTube. That would be reasonable. Cut the work in half or more so it's less daunting. Or tackle the low-hanging fruit first to feel it's successful. So I was giving this analogy to a high school kid I was working with who was having trouble going to school at all remotely. And she's like, her philosophy was she wanted to do the tough stuff first because she thought that if she got that out of the way, the rest of it would be easy. And I'm like, no, let's tackle the low-hanging fruit first, because wouldn't it be easier to like just reach up and pick the apple that are right in front of you, rather than let me go get the ladder, let me climb up, let me get my bucket, let me reach for the highest ones on the top so that I can, I'm really hungry, let me get those first. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Let's do the easy ones that we can reach very quickly and satisfy that hunger first, so we can feel like, okay, we're done, we can work harder next time, but that we're not working so hard the first time and we're worn out by the time it's time to get something else. And she's like, oh, okay, I see what you mean. So it's like, but a lot of kids haven't even thought of doing that. Well, let's tackle the easy stuff first. They think, oh, I want to finish up and get the hard stuff or the stuff I don't like done first. And we can just change that perspective for them. So let's talk about the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if anybody's heard of that before. You can find it on the internet. So what you do is you identify that your tasks for the day. So write a list. You set your timer for 25 minutes. It doesn't have to be 25 minutes. It can be less. That's fine. Work for the duration of the timer, and when you're done, you take a 5-minute break. And after every fourth break, you take a longer break for 15 or 30 minutes. So this is not rocket science. This is just somebody, I don't know why, I think the timer, the Pomodoros, because the timer was originally looking like a tomato. I don't know. But that's where it comes from. So that's just the basic idea. Another way of doing it is the Eisenhower decision matrix. So I don't know if you've heard this either. So what you do is you rate each task on a scale of 1 to 5 for importance and a scale of urgency for 1 to 5. Okay, so, and then you put them in these boxes. So this you would do first. So anything that is urgent and important you would do now. So these things have clear deadlines and consequences for not doing them immediately. So for a kid, think about it, that's like daily homework or chores. Like if your chore is to take the dog out and you live in an apartment or something and you have to take the dog out before he messes up the house, that would be something you want to do first, okay? So that would be urgent and important. So the next step you go is to decide. So this is where you're going to make a plan. So I'm going to make a plan every day to exercise. So it's important, but it's not something I need to do at 9 o'clock every day, okay? Or it's not something I need to turn in by a certain time. Or like my kid has to work on his college application and it's due by the end of the month. Well, I need to work on a little bit every day because I need to write the essay and it's due, but it's not due until then. So I'm going to schedule it a little bit on my calendar each day to work on it. So it is important, but I don't need to get it done today. So that would be in the decide section. Now the delegate is, okay, things are urgent, they need to get done, but they may not need to get done by me because I'm not the end all be all to everything. So maybe I can negotiate with a sibling to do a different chore. Maybe we can switch tasks. Okay, I've got a lot of homework this day. My sister doesn't. She can take the dog out, or she can do the dishes, and I can, if I got a homework assignment that's due right now, I can empty the dishwasher later or something. So you can switch around. Or if you're planning, if you have a book report or a science fair project that's due next semester, maybe you can like put that off. You can just delay it because you don't need to think of a topic right now. Let's do something that's more important to be done. And other things, the final step is delete. So what can you just drop entirely? And these can be distractions that make you feel worse after doing like everything in moderation, right? Like, but you don't have to sit there in front of social media for hours and hours. You don't have to sit there in front of video games for hours and hours. It's fine, my kids do it, but not for hours and hours. Everything in moderation is okay, I think, but it's not absolutely necessary. So it's not important and it's not urgent. It may be enjoyable, but not necessary. So are there any questions in the chat? I can't look. So does anybody have any questions? Christy?
Yes, there's one. It's more like a note though.
Okay.
For our older kids, I think this making a chart with these options would be great to build up their self autonomy, sorry, and
Autonomy?
allow them to, yeah, and allow them to problem solve with your support. Give them solutions that they could choose from to try. I love these options for parents.
Yeah, I was thinking, what would I put in these boxes too? I'm like, well, they say put exercise in the decide box, but I'm thinking, I think I'll put it in the delete box. You know, but it's personal choices, right? What's important to you. So I wish I could put it in the delegate. That would be better. Anyway, I digress. So okay, yeah, thank you for that input. That was great. Okay, obstacle 2 is it's too hard, right? So typical examples are I don't understand, my teacher didn't explain it, or I don't want to, and it's just too hard, okay? So some possible solutions are to ask a teacher. I know it seems easy, but remember that it's much harder in the online world and your child may need help. So, you know, when we're face to face and the kids are there, I know my kid, my 13-year-old, he would stay after class for a few minutes and talk to the teacher one-on-one because he didn't feel comfortable raising his hand in front of everybody. So he'd like took advantage of that time to like do it in private. That's a lot harder unless the teacher has that time set aside. And maybe you don't know when the office hours are. Like a lot of teachers, they have office hours. I mean, they exist out there, but the kids are not taking advantage of it. Maybe you should find out when the office hours are, and you can encourage your kid to do it. It really helps when I know when I was working on a project with a school district, and the whole point was to get kids to log on. They weren't logging on to class at all, and they were in high school. But to get the parents engaged was really important because the kids, even in high school, weren't doing it on their own, and parents had no idea why their kids were not logging in. So to having the parents know, oh, okay, well, I know what I need to do to encourage my kid. So even in those older years, you know, it's really important to get parent engagement. You could also encourage your kid to phone a friend. It's often easier to understand from a peer than a teacher. So that's another source. You can use visual prompts to map out the concepts. So these Mindmaster and Mindmeister are two internet sources where they're mind maps. And so it's just a visual, like a visualization method to how to see things differently. So my kid was actually doing he had to do a mind map, but it could be like a tree map, a circle map, a bubble map, and I'll show you an example of a bubble map in the next one. But it just is a different way of seeing something. These two sites, one, we get 3 free on Mindmaster, and then you have to pay for it, and Mindmeister, and then Mindmaster you have to pay, I think it's $59 a year. But you don't need these. I'm a paper and pencil person myself, and I like, you know, making charts is my thing. But you can do whatever, like a Venn diagram, whatever helps to map out the concepts. Also, to chunk the assignments into more manageable steps. That's often an accommodation that we make for kids that are in special education. Online resources, the readworks.org it's free content in different like science, technology, math, literature, arts, even social emotional learning. For K through 12, it's got articles of the day with comprehension questions and vocabulary. It's just a resource for you to look at, like say if your kid is coming to you and you're like, I don't know anything about, you know, the water system or whatever. Yeah, you can look it up on Google, like that's always a source. But if you want something that you know is coming from a reliable education source, then ReadWorks is an option as well. And if they just say, you know, it's too hard, I don't want to do it, or, you know, then using self-talk or positive mantras to talk yourself through is, you know, just, you can do it. You can do it. I can do it. I can get through this. Let's do a little at a time. I know I can do it. That can be helpful as well. So this is an example of a mind map. This is a bubble map. So it's a very pretty one. Mine never looked like that. But if you wanted to, like the benefits of health and all the different aspects of it, then you could do that for yourself, just to help understand what it is. And it just, you know, looks at concepts. You can use maps for comparing and contrasting, etc. So the obstacle number 3 is it's too boring, right? So your kid might say, "Arg, I'm so bored," or "Can I go outside now?" So that's really all that they want to do. So a lot of these sound similar, right? The same solutions: work in small chunks, or use the Pomodoro method. Alternate between preferred and non-preferred tasks. So if a lot of this is, you know, if you do this, then you get this, you know. Use small rewards to mark progress. Once again, the token economy. If you know, the incentives, and it's okay to use extrinsic rewards. Take brain breaks to keep energy levels up. So do push-ups, go for a walk, do a handstand, jump, or do an art activity if that's what they're into. You know, often you'll get time between periods, between class periods, to do something. If art is what they're into, do that. Go Noodle is a source I know a lot of teachers use in the classroom. So they're like movement and mindful videos for kids, and they're free, and they often have educational aspects to them. And so you can do that at home. Why not? Connect the assignments to real world goals or skills. So say there's a history assignment a kid has to do. He's totally not interested in medieval China or whatever, but maybe, you know, you can, he likes travel, and so maybe you can talk about, hey, what if we visited China now? What would it look like now? Let's compare it to what it was like back then, or an event that took place back then, or let's look that up on the internet, or, you know, see how it's changed, or something to that effect. So to connect it to what they really are interested in. Or you can add a layer of interest by asking the teacher if the student can turn the assignment into something that they do enjoy doing, like a video project or an oral presentation or an art project. So, but that obviously takes cooperation with the teacher. So it really helps to have a good working relationship with the teacher. So obstacle number 4 is that they're too distracted. And I will get this a lot, like from my kid, like, wait, what was I supposed to do? And luckily I can check his Google Classroom, and it says missing assignments, and I look at it every night, and I'm like, okay, what did he miss during the day? He did it, he just didn't turn it in. And so we were like, okay, you need to set your own alarm, like on your Alexa that he's got, and to make sure he turns all those assignments in, because it's not my responsibility. Or they'll say, you know, just let me check this one thing if they have access to social media, or I'm stressed about other things and they just can't focus, you know, like homework is not their priority. So what you can do to help is to set up controls on their phone and computer for restricting certain websites during work time. And you want to do this with your child, like while your child's sitting there right with you, not to your child. So don't say, look, I set up these restrictions on your phone. You can only do this and this. That won't work. You need to talk them through it and say, look, what do you think is going to be reasonable? What time should we set it for? How much time do you want? How much time do you think you really need? So that they feel like they're a part of it. You know, that autonomy and those making choices is really important, you know, with restrictions. So you want to do it with them, not to them. So again, writing the schedule or task list on a large, always visible surface, cutting down the assignments, amount of homework. And when there's, they can often do more when there's less to do, or think that there's less to do. You have to talk with the teacher also to get less amount done, if that's possible. So take a lot of short breaks. Make a list of 2 to 5 minute breaks that don't involve screens. You know, just getting the blood flowing really helps. Or talk it out. So ask what's on their mind and take a moment to give space to those worries without necessarily trying to solve them. Okay, so you don't have to have all the answers all the time. That's not always your role to solve their problems. It helps just to listen. And the last obstacle is sometimes they'll just say it's too pointless. And I love this picture of this kid because it just sums it up. So they'll just say, why bother? Or they'll say no and then just hide, or they'll just, this is dumb. Like, why am I doing this? So sometimes you need to find the kid's unique why, you know, regardless of what the school says. Like if they say, oh, it's so important that you learn the water table, or it's so important that you do this. What is your child's goal for this year? Like, what do they want to do? Do they want to get better at typing? Do they want to learn video editing? Do they want to become an expert on whatever by making every project about it? Do they want to start a YouTube channel? Find out that and build towards that, kind of make the assignments about that, or maybe use that as the incentive. If you do this, then you can work on that. Or you can focus on resiliency skills and less on academic skills. So help your child learn to roll with the tech glitches, or empathize with the teachers trying the best that they can, and get creative about solving problems, and to notice when friends need help. So this is a great opportunity if you can kind of change your perspective into thinking, okay, what can we learn from this whole COVID thing and being at home and being together too much? And there's a lot of things we can build on, and to just, okay, how can we relate better to people? How can we understand where they're coming from? A lot of the kids that I talk to are like, oh, teachers don't understand what I'm going through. And yeah, they do. Just let's try to put us in their shoes, and how they've had to change their perspective of how they teach is the same as we've had to change our perspective on how we learn. So it really helps us to think differently. Or make parallels to regular school. If school was still in person, would they be going and trying their best? And if the answer is yes, then why aren't you showing up every day to your virtual school? Why aren't you trying your best with remote learning? And sometimes that can get through to them. It's the same thing, it's just in a different format. It's really important that they have connections with their friends. So if that involves, study dates or finding any sort of way to socially distance, then that's important to them. Also, to make a show-off board of art projects or motivational quotes, like behind them, that's appropriate for the classroom. But sometimes that can get other kids that are in the class interested, like, oh, hey, I saw that quote on your board. That I really like that, and then that can kind of spark a social conversation between other kids in the class, and they can make a connection that way. One of the most important things is to just listen and empathize. Like I said, you don't need to be the problem solver all the time. Your child just may need a space to say how much this all stinks, because parts of it does. And you can emphasize without fixing it. So saying things like, you're right, like if they just want to complain, say that this is boring, or I hate it, or this stinks, or you can just say, yeah, you're right. Or say, what's making it particularly hard today? Like what makes today more painful than the other days? Or I hear you, or that sounds really tough. But you're not going to add, but you got to do your work, or, but why don't you just, suck it up? All you're doing is empathetic listening. You're repeating what they said. I hear you saying this is, really tough for you. I hear you saying that it's hard for you to do this work, or you don't feel like your teacher's listening to you, but you're not adding that, but you got to do it anyway. You're just listening, okay? And that's your role for that moment. And a lot of times that's all kids want to hear. That's all that they need at that moment, is to just be listened to. And that can be enough. So the takeaways from this are to find out what's getting in the way of your child's lack of motivation, so that you can help problem solve before it triggers that meltdown. Remember that peak of we've got A and then we've got B, which is up here, the behavior. We want to get to that before that point. So we want to ask the question before it gets there. Most solutions involve prioritizing and cutting down tasks into smaller pieces, or like I said, just listening. And having natural intrinsic motivation is great, but sometimes external rewards are needed to build positive habits, which contribute to success. So that's important too. So, and I like this quote, ability is what you're capable of doing, motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. And here are some resources. This is Dr. Engoff's site. This is the Smart But Scattered Kids. This is the website for IDA LA. So how you can go onto lots of resources with them, and contact the branch if you would like. These are some LACO, which is the Los Angeles County Office of Education. So they are presenting dyslexia webinars regarding dyslexia. This link down here, I know it's kind of hard to see, but this last one, Understanding Dyslexia, What California Educators Need to Know, is a presentation that they did for teachers this past month that kind of tell it's it's really good. It does talk about dyslexia on a basic level. So if you have any questions about it, about what dyslexia is, it talks about it, and but the important thing is it's telling teachers that work in LA Unified, what dyslexia is. And they're going to have future webinars that talk about implementing interventions and accommodating students with dyslexia in middle and high school throughout the next several months. So I just wanted to let people know if they want, they can do these webinars as well. They would just go to this website, the Reading Language Arts, and just, if you're interested, you don't have to be a teacher to listen to the webinars, and you just get to know, okay, what is LA Unified doing about educating teachers about dyslexia? So just thought that that was a good resource for you if you were interested. So that is it. I know I talk really fast, so, but if anybody has any questions.
We do have a question from Chris LaPresse. It says, I have an 8th grader who is having trouble with history notes. The teacher wants students to take notes for later use on tests. My child says this doesn't help as he cannot find it later, so doesn't do it at all. Don't know how to approach.
Can you say it again?
It's okay. So the teacher is asking students to take notes for later use on the test, but the student is saying that it doesn't help. It's not doing it at all because he can't find it.
So is the teacher just taking notes or the kid is taking notes?
The kid is taking notes.
So the kid can't find his own notes?
Maybe it'd be easier for me to say what's going on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
They have a presentation, or they do the class, and she tells them what to type in so that they remember the important concepts of history. But she says, I don't want to do that because when their test is there, there's so many words that I can't find that information. So she just doesn't want to do it at all.
Oh.
So, but that's not helping her either, because then she's missing the important concepts. So I don't know, I mean, it's a combination of all these. It's lack of motivation to do this, but it's also, I don't think this is going to help me, so why should I bother doing it? So,
is she sitting there while the teacher is like giving the lecture or whatever, and just, she's listening to it, she's just not taking notes?
Yeah, well, they have a study notes page, and the teacher says specifically what to put on, lots of times cut and paste to do it. So I've kind of strategized and said, she's more artistic. Maybe you can draw something. Maybe you can put other pictures, but that's not clicking either. So I don't know, because this is something as an 8th grader that's going to come again in high school and beyond, that you do need to learn how to take notes. So I'm stuck.
Is she graded on the notes that she takes?
Nope.
So how well does she do on the tests?
She does okay. Yeah.
I mean, I would feel like if she feels that she doesn't need the notes, and I mean, I totally get that she needs to know how to take notes. But if she feels like that she is okay on the test without taking the notes, then, and she doesn't have to turn in the notes, then that's not a battle I would fight.
Okay. Because that's one thing I'm struggling with, because I can see the precedent for establishing, yeah, you do need to, you're not going to know and remember everything. However, and for the future to get into that rhythm of, as there's a lecture, you take some notes, but she's just locking down.
Right. And it's, you know, you can't, I mean, my other suggestion my thought would be, can you ask I mean, it doesn't really teach the kid how to take notes. Does she take notes for her other classes?
No.
Dawn, you want me?
Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think one thing to keep in mind, Chris, is our kids are, here, I'll put my screen back on, if I can find it. There we go. You think of our kids are neurodiverse, right? And a traditional classroom teacher is going to say, okay, I want you, or a traditional format is to take notes, you know, like you and I did growing up. And some of our kids, you know, for whatever reason, maybe their memory is so good, she truly could remember it, or her, maybe it's a motor thing that's keeping her from it. And you kind of might think, wonder what's keeping her from that. And it would be, you know, it sounds like you started that conversation with her. I would think if the one thing it's important is for her to learn the skill of doing it. You know, so often we're learning the skill of doing it. And you might want to just mention that, you know, honey, I do this, you know, if I'm going to this workshop on Saturday, I'm taking notes because sometimes I won't remember things. Or if I'm at the doctor's office and they're telling me things I need to do, I will take notes so I don't forget. So there are different times in life we do, that's a good life skill habit. So an alternative might be how she might feel more comfortable taking notes. If she's doing it on the computer, maybe that's easier or more fun for her than writing it, or even illustrating her notes. You know,
Trying all of
maybe
those.
she's drawing pictures of those points, and maybe that's all she needs is something to jar the memory. Whereas some of us, you know, if we're taking notes, we're writing almost everything down. You know, we're all different in that. So maybe this is a good time for her to explore ways to take notes that work for her.
Yeah,
Because you're wanting to develop this is a life skill. And right now what she's doing in class, maybe she can remember it, but maybe when she's in college and the vocabulary goes up and the content goes up, she's not going to be able to remember it, and she'll wish she'd had that life skill that she learned earlier. So it's kind of a nice opportunity to come alongside of her and say, hey, great life skill. How can we make this work for you? Let's try a way. And you tell me if that works for you. And if it doesn't, next time we'll try it differently. You know, so she knows you're partnering with her. You see it's important. You're not going to let it go. But you're willing to flex and find out with her learning style which way works best. Does that help?
Yeah, I've tried a lot of those because and it's still, there's just a wall that goes up. I don't want to take the notes, but I mean, for example, right now she's doing the Holocaust. There's a lot of details to remember that you don't quite necessarily remember those up front.
Mm-hmm.
But she just refuses. And I thought she's a great artist to draw things, to do anything that starts to get, that's going to stick with her. And it's just, there's a wall. And I've tried.
Would she dictate it to you and you type it?
She might be able to do that, but I've also tried to get her to do the speech to text too. But she's taken the microphone off the headphones. Yeah, this is one that I'm like, I know this is such an important life skill. And I know what the teacher's trying to do, and I know there's many ways to take notes, but I just can't get her to do anything.
Well, and sometimes that's where as parents, when we know there's something that's important for our kids to learn, you know, you kind of figure out what are your hills to die on. You know, she can get the grade without it. Maybe it's not a hill to die on at her age. There might be something else you want to, you know. But if it's something that you really want, you really firmly believe this is important for her to do, that's when you go to the extrinsic motivators. And you just say, I hear you, but you know, I'm the parent and I need you to trust me. That years from now you go, I'm so glad mom made me do that. So honey, what would be worth it for you? And you could name 3 different things that you know she loves, you know, spending more time with mom, little something, you know, name 3 things and just say, would one of these be motivating for you? And just, you guys decide on the carrot. And you know, there's certain things our kids just have to do that they don't want to do. We find that sometimes those of you parents who you're taking your kids to the tutor and, you know, or they're having to Zoom with the tutor after school and they're kind of zoomed out, you know, and you just say, I know you don't want to do this, but intervention is so important. You know, how can we make this doable for you? And I want to work with you. What can we do that would make it worth it for you? So, you know, ideally we want intrinsic motivation, as Dawn said, but if intrinsic isn't there, find a nice carrot, you know, and hopefully down the pipe they go, Mom, glad we did that, you know, so.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you.
Hope that. Other questions for Dawn?
I know somebody's posted about the LACO link. I will look at that. I checked it and I thought it was okay, but I will check that before we send out the resources to make sure that you're able to access it.
How are people's experience with you know, it's hard. We're into almost a year of COVID and kids being online since last March. Some kids have a lot harder time with motivation than other kids. I find out of my clients, the ADHD kids, this is so hard for them. Maybe where your child or grandchild is at, or maybe you could share with us, because we're a parent group or support group, what something you found that really has helped, kind of based on things Dawn's been talking about. Have you found certain things have really been a trigger for your kid, helping them to be more motivated? Somebody want to share? You could just mute and just pop in.
Are you raising your hand, Taryn? You can just unmute.
Yeah, just unmute.
I am raising my hand. Sort of the biggest problem we're having, and we have like the Circle device, and we have other, options in the Apple family for parental controls, is just the simple availability of an open tab. Every time I leave the room, I come back and like my 13-year-old is on another tab, and I can get rid of, YouTube for the day, and I can get rid of, several known platforms, but all these kids on his peers are all in these other websites that aren't on those devices, like Reddit, and like, I'm just showing my age. Like, I don't even know the names of them, but they're all little boys talking about playing video games, and they're watching. My son is watching these in lieu of like doing his class when he gets bored. He does suffer from ADD, and and some other special circumstances. So just having a hard time with that one. Also keeping track of what he does turn in. There's a lot of like lying about, oh, it's done. I turned it in. It's fine. I am in contact with his teachers, but it seems extremely hard to keep up with. I don't know if there's an actual question in there.
So is he going to other websites when he should be doing his classwork, or when he should be working independently?
I think it's a combo. When he does show up for a class, his teachers say that he's, very well spoken. He's got a grasp of the topic at hand. Hold on, he's coming down. So I think it's mainly in those times. Hey, Boats. Oh, hello. Hi. You want to say hi?
I'm sure he does. Because I know the teachers can often monitor the screens of the kids that are in the class, and they can shut them down like when they're not on the right site. So I don't know if you're muted.
To use it. I was not aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would, and I'm all about the kids advocating for themselves, but sometimes you guys kind of have to like go around the kid and say, my kid has trouble, paying attention to class. Could you try to monitor his activity online and redirect him when necessary, or shut him off of what else he's doing because he has difficulty doing it himself. And so, if the teacher says, she can like flag him or chat, say, hey, I noticed, Bob, you're on a different site. I'm going to shut this down. And then, that'll trigger in him, oh, I need to redirect myself. But if she does it enough times and tells him, then hopefully he'll do it himself eventually and redirect himself, because that's what we want, right? We want him to be able to redirect his own attention, but he can't do it yet. So he needs some help. But yeah, but that they are able to do that. So I don't know if Barb, if you have any additional.
Yeah, no, teachers can do that. It's one of the hardest things because as parents, either you're sitting next to, either the teacher's on it, shutting them down, you're sitting with them, or you're having to come by frequently. They don't know when mom's coming by, you know, or if you need to have little intrinsic, extrinsic motivators that you combine, you see he's on task, he gets a bean, or, you know what I mean, that he's working for those things. Look, mom, I'm on task, you know. I would also, if you can, make sure the computer's facing not a wall, but where you can walk by and see real easily, you know, that, you know, it's just that, you know, you just know, you know, if I'm driving down the freeway and I think there's a lot of policemen around, I will drive 65. But that's not always true. I hate to confess. If I'm thinking, look, things are looking pretty good, I may ramp it up a little bit, you know. And if, you know, you're helping keeping them accountable, which is hard work for parents. But, you know, we've got some kids who are a little more slippery than others. And I would talk to them about it, not in a, you know, they know they're not supposed to be doing that, but it's more coming alongside again and saying, okay, honey, how can I help you stay on task? Because I'm noticing it's a problem. What can we do together to help you stay on task? You know, and if they're total denial, no, I'm fine, da, 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 you know, they may need you to sit with them a little bit, but hopefully they're saying, yeah, mom, I get so distracted. And I would say you take the shame out of it and say, you know, I get that way too. I'll be, you know, I was at this workshop the other day, and while the gal was talking, I was checking my email, I was checking, you know, I get that way too. Because it is hard for us to sit in front of a computer screen. So, you know, help them know it's real, but we got to learn to manage it. So, you know, that's part of growing up, is learning to manage our distractions, whether you're sitting in a classroom or online or in a workshop or wherever you are. So it's a great learning opportunity to come alongside and help them. How do we develop those skills? How do we develop those things? And I would say even partway through, to say 20 minutes in, let's do a stretch break. Angle your thing, and you're going to stand up for a little bit and then come back down. Because if your child's saying, I can't focus for more than 10 minutes, mom, okay, let's set the timer for 10. I'll come back in, let's do a little stretch while you're paying attention in class, and then you pop back, then you sit back down. You don't have to take much to get things going. But I think it's an opportunity to come alongside them. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, I mean, it does. Those are all very good suggestions. I'm homeschooling my daughter, so a lot of times I'm not able to, but it's a room we walk through all the time. So, yeah.
Are
I mean,
other people
I
finding
like that yesterday because I had to go upstairs in my house 4 times to do one thing, and I kept getting distracted on the way up. So,
yeah, parents are the unsung heroes through all this, you know, remote learning, because you guys are putting in a lot of extra time not doing what you're normally doing in your routine. What has anybody found what works, has been something that's been helpful for you in helping your kids stay on task during class online learning? It's a hard one.
Well, I mean, for my kid, at least, I know they've instilled the fear of punishment in the use of the Chromebook. If you use the Chromebook for any other purpose rather than school, you are severely in trouble. So I don't know how other schools are handling that, but like he's afraid even to like use it for, he likes to read fan fiction online. So like, you know, if you know what fan fiction is, like how people have written novels based on other people's ideas. So it's reading, right? But you have to access it to the internet. He refuses to use his Chromebook for that because he's afraid he's going to get in trouble, because when he has to turn in his Chromebook, they'll find out that he accessed the internet and you know, sites that he wasn't allowed to. So if you have a rule follower kid like I do, then you could use hey, you signed the internet agreement, you know, with the school saying that you would only use it you know, for school purposes, and you are not using it for school purposes, and so, you know, you don't want to get in trouble. Now, it's not a punishment, it's just a reminder of, hey, you know, this is what the Chromebook is for. And that would work maybe with some kids.
Somebody else, how are you interfacing with this on motivation? Questions for Dawn? Good. Well, I think, Dawn, thanks so much for presenting today, giving us some really good things to think about. I think what's always great coming off these parent groups is how you guys can hopefully apply this week and make it really helpful and really, really important. I want to tell you just some of the topics we have coming up this winter. We're working on dates, but some of the ones we have coming is helping getting parents, kind of helping parents get supporting parents through homeschooling with dyslexic kids. What are ways, things more kind of extending this conversation we're having today. We're also going to have a parent group on executive function. Another one on navigating the IEP process, especially during the pandemic. This summer, we're hoping to do some things on school reentry, because if our schools, hopefully some of the kids will be back in class in the fall, if not all of them, or in some kind of a model. So, you know, if they've been away from the classroom for 18 months, you know, how do we as parents get our kids ready for reentry? Are there disciplines and just, you know, a mindset of being in the classroom, which is going to be different than being at home, especially if you've got little ones who haven't had a whole lot of school experience on site to go back to. And then we're also going to have one on helping parents thrive, because parenting dyslexic kids or kids who are neurodiverse is a challenge, and it's different than, they have different needs than some of your other kids. So we're going to be talking about that, helping parents thrive amidst the difficulty it can be of parenting kids who take a lot more of our time. So we hope those will be helpful. So keep your eyes out for those. We don't have quite scheduled yet, but they'll be coming up this spring and the rest of the winter. So Dawn, anything else you want to share with us today? Rosie?
No, but thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it. And everybody stay healthy and yeah, just keep doing your best.
Oh, one more quick plug. The National Organization of IDA is soon to be putting out, I don't know what to call it. It's a resource of online videos called IDA TV. And right now they're doing piloting it. So if you're interested, you could contact them through the national website and just ask for a free trial and try it out. And then maybe it's not a pilot, it's a trial. And then you can subscribe to it. So it's going to be an incredible just storehouse of tons and tons of speakers from conferences and workshops on different topics related to dyslexia. So historically, we've had a lot of printed material, but with today, you know, if I want to learn how to do something, I'm always YouTubing it. I don't know about you or people in your family. My husband's always YouTubing things. So it's kind of that format on things relating to dyslexia. So that's coming too. Great. Thanks for coming today. Have a great weekend. It's sunny. The rain's gone. Stay safe. And thank you for being part of our community. Thank you, Dawn.
Thanks.
Great job.
Bye.